The open world genre is a big one, with some of its most popular games, from Grand Theft Auto to Red Dead Redemption to Elden Ring, being some of the biggest names in gaming. But like all genres of games, there's a lot more to open world than just these big names. Hi folks, it's Mac, and today on this video we have some of our favorite underrated open world games that you need to try. And we're gonna start off with Generation Zero at number 10. This, I think, is a minor cult classic. It's a damn good open world game that eschews most of the usual pitfalls of the genre for something that feels almost like a throwback. You know, it does feel kind of like how an open world game would have been made if they had the technology they had before the open world as a modern genre congealed, if that makes sense. It's a totally open map, but it's quiet, it's eerie, and there's almost no NPCs. The world is mostly barren, and with environmental storytelling doing the majority of the heavy lifting to provide some kind of story in this ruined 1980s Sweden. But unlike Scum, the story isn't the point of the game. Getting around and finding supplies and exploring is. But the most important thing is definitely robo-spotting. These nasty, tough bots are everywhere, and you gotta be careful with them because they can kill you pretty quick if you aren't cautious. Everything in Generation Zero requires some thought and planning to overcome, which is also what makes it so much fun. That moment that seems impossible to overcome, finding a way and taking those bastards down feels beyond rewarding. Unlike a lot of open world games, the difficulty only ramps up the further you go. But I have to tell you this game is definitely a little bit of an acquired taste. The combat can feel a little weird at first, but it is one of the few open world survival games that does something a little bit different, and it's also just a fun, weird, tactical game. If you love tactical shooting, it's a game for you. Coming in next is Shadows of Doubt. This is a game that really needs to be talked about. It's easy to look at a few screenshots and confuse it for something else, but this is one of the most impressive, procedurally generated open world games ever made. It's incredible. Its visuals are a lot like Minecraft, but that is where the similarities end. This game has an intriguing and super replayable core concept, and that's basically because you'll be playing as a detective in a large city solving crimes. What makes this game special is just how detailed the world is and how much raw interactivity they've managed to pack inside. If you've ever walked down a city street in any video game and wondered what's in that house or if you could walk around in there, if you could interact with everything like in a real house, Shadows of Doubt lets you do that with every single room you can find or get around on the entire map. It makes for one of the most impressive gaming sandboxes I've seen in a very long time. And to be frank, on paper, I can't exactly understand how this game could exist without a giant team behind it. It's tremendously detailed and complex. Every citizen has a name and apartment. They work jobs, they go to places after the time they're supposed to be working, they keep various schedules, and you can learn all this information to track them down and investigate the various crimes. Every single building is explorable. Every single NPC has deep backstories and relationships to unravel. It's all procedurally generated, and it's all tied to random cases and missions the game generates for you to solve. For what is basically a very complex detective roguelike, this is as good as the genre gets, and it is a banger. Next up at number 8, we have Immortals Fenyx Rising, one of those games that got a little unfairly ignored. And if I'm being honest, it's mostly just down to poor timing, because this game came out right around when a lot of big 2020 games launched. Within a single shadow drop, this game was effectively wiped from people's minds, and I'm being real, it's a little bit unfortunate, because behind the silly name is a really good open world game that does a lot of unique stuff to stick out. It really is Ubisoft trying something a little different with the open world formula, and it does actually manage to kind of pull it off. The vibe's a little lighter, writing, well, it's an improvement over the usual Ubisoft Dreck, and the gameplay is a lot more physics-focused. It kind of gives certain aspects of it a more, Nintendo vibe. It's not exactly like Breath of the Wild, although there is a little bit of that hapless shrug towards the mouth noises that are the story in that game. And it is a little physicsy. There are some elements there, but it's definitely its own game. It's not perfect. I mean, what game is? It's a little bit overly long, and if some of the voice performances start to wear thin after a while, yeah. But there's a really solid game in there, and it deserves a bigger sequel. But obviously that's not happening because, Ubisoft is Ubisoft. But anyways, if you missed Immortals Fenyx Rising, definitely give it a try. Next on the list, we have to talk about Outcast: A New Beginning. Despite its lot of technical and structural flaws, we still think that this sci-fi third-person shooter is a damn good time. If you like exploring beautiful, vibrant open worlds, this game has some of the best of the best. You got a fun jetpack to do some interesting traversal, you run around, you got a highly customizable giant gun, and a lot of really colorful enemies to blast. This game looks great, but it's charming because it really goes all in on the weird sci-fi original world building. It's not quite like anything else, except maybe maybe the original Outcast game. Now look, it's a little bit jank, the animation's not that great, and there are some real weaknesses in this game, so that's one that I can understand if some people might not get into it. But if you could look past the faults, Outcast: A New Beginning is one of the best chill open-world games to just run around and explore. It's a bit of a tone departure from a lot of these games though, which can sometimes mostly be about the world crumbling. I mean, it does have your typical alien plot about an invading empire, but that's all sort of secondary to just being in this world, interacting with the people, and stopping the bad guys. It's just a satisfying game and a feel-good one at that, just because of the vibrancy and the colorfulness. Now, if any of this sounded interesting, then I think Outcast: A New Beginning is worth your time. Coming in next, we have The Eternal Cylinder. This is honestly one of my favorite open world games that have come out in the last few years, and it's just so underrated. It's actually a little less open world and more like an open stage game. Each individual environment is handcrafted, and you're kind of free to do whatever you want in this environment. You're not limited by a map or anything like that, but it does have organic borders like procedurally generated worlds do. So at least in terms of size, these environments can be as big as a true open world. They even have the same survival elements, but that's where the similarities come here, because the rest of this game is a lot different from your typical open world game. I mean, you're not playing some tough guy with superpowers that ganks dudes for cash. No, you're like a little alien thing called a trebum, and your goal is to mutate and gain new abilities, and then gather up more trebum to be able to survive the environment and escape the unstoppable force known as the almighty cylinder. Yeah, this game, by the way, is also kind of dark, and the surreal art style and the very bizarre narration makes it even more compelling. But yeah, this game is essentially the big world that developer Ace Team has always wanted to make. It's very weird, but it feels very original, and it's really awesome. Instead of focusing on combat, you're really just thinking about your environment and then curiosity, and it's really refreshing. It's a very rewarding game too that really just completely challenges and subverts a lot of what you might be familiar with in these open world games nowadays. Next up, it's Chorus. It's also another underrated open world game, but it has more of like a limited and focused approach. And depending on what you want from these games, focusing on the main story more and allowing free exploration might be something you'd want. In this game, you do control a customizable ship, and it basically plays like a classic space combat simulator. You got lasers, you got missiles, you have massive explosions. It's got really great flight mechanics, and there's some large open spaces to explore that constitute the open world here, but it's pretty small compared to most of these other games. And that's not a bad thing either. The open world here, you still have your side quests, you have your missions, but they're mostly just there to help you get more loot, more supplies, and sometimes encounter a little bit of extra lore. But other than that, everything here is really built around pushing this relatively long main story. So the open world here is not just necessarily for sightseeing, but also just actually doing meaningful stuff, where if a lot of modern games, maybe like the newest Assassin's Creed games, aren't hitting for you and feel just a little bit too big, Chorus is like the palate cleanser antidote or something, and you might really like it. Next, over at number 4, Rise of the Ronin. I know we've talked about this one a bunch, and it's not exactly the most underappreciated game on this list. The sales have been pretty good, but among Sony's 2024 offerings, it's certainly not the most celebrated. While I have my issues with the game design and minor gripes with like the pretty weak main story and not the best graphics, overall it's still a really fun game, a very challenging game as well, sometimes brutally difficult, with a ton of interesting stuff to do. They pack in the open world activities, and as a big dumb open world guy, I just found all these bits and pieces here, all these different open world tasks and things to do, weirdly entertaining. Most of them are a little more than like your average fetch quest or something like that, but just going out into the world looking for cats for some reason and finding random mini bosses to challenge and destroy them with the fun weapons and diverse combat, like there was just a really good gameplay loop, and I found myself stuck in this game for hours. Now it's worth mentioning that the combat system is very robust as you'd expect. From a game from Team Ninja, it's got that going for it, and one of the best things about the game is how the combat plays too. Overall, I think Rise of the Ronin is a must play, especially if you enjoyed playing Ghost of Tsushima and similar games. Now down at number 3, we have Gravity Rush 2. It was a late release on the PlayStation 4, it reviewed well, but it went completely under the radar for a lot of people. And honestly, its commercial failure is the main reason why Sony shut down Japan studios. This game was a critical hit, but the reason why it flopped is likely to this day one of the biggest mysteries for like great open world games that go underappreciated. Now basically think of this one as like a beloved cult movie. The people who like it really like it a lot, but they're really just not enough. So what makes this game so good anyway? It honestly just feels different from almost any open world game out there. For one, there's no climbing towers or doing like the waypoint routine. The core of the game is gravity itself and you being able to manipulate it. So you don't really jump or fly. You enter a mode where you'd fall in any direction, and that's how you move around the city. It's extremely fast and stylish and surprising all the time. But the creativity also manifests in the world design. Each level has multiple layers and they're very vertical, so you really gotta explore them to see everything they have to offer. It's a mixture of hidden challenges, environmental storytelling, side characters with personality. It's really really awesome. And the comic book art direction and the architecture of the floating worlds just looks so good. And it makes the city feel alive in a way that other ones really don't. Gravity Rush 2 is really a world worth exploring, and this is one that I absolutely highly recommend if you like open world games. Now at number 2, the Assassin's Creed games are not necessarily underrated. I mean, they're like one of the biggest game franchises out there. But that being said, like most long-running series, there are still games in the series here that kind of underperformed, or at least don't get as much attention as some of the other games. And in this case, we're talking Assassin's Creed Unity. It's set in revolutionary France, and a lot of people call this version of Paris one of the most beautiful and realistically made open-world cities in pretty much any game. The reason Unity is called a hidden gem is because of its reputation. It's often considered one of the worst entries, at least by fans, and is sometimes called a blemish on the franchise though. We would say this game's reputation really comes down to the bugs. It was kind of a buggy game. There was a lot of famous launch problems, but in our own personal experience, Unity was never even remotely close to that bad. If anything, this game was more like the notoriety was outweighed by just how solid and even good Unity is as an Assassin's Creed game. It's not top tier at all, I just think it's very good. For a lot of people, this was one of the best ones until the series decided to pivot and become a big RPG with Origins. There's a lot of cool stuff to do in Unity in the open world. The combat and parkour feel just fluid and satisfying. But really, it's all about the city here. They put so much into recreating revolutionary France, and it still remains one of the most impressive video game renditions of a real city. Now, finally at number 1, I don't know if many of you will have an argument against me on this one, but Sleeping Dogs. It's probably one of the greatest open world games of all time, but it's also kind of underrated. Ask anyone who played this one, and you're probably not going to hear a bad thing about it. People who played it love it. It's just pure fun from top to bottom. The martial arts combat is super fun and flashy, the shooting feels great and is really well integrated, and the driving is smooth as butter. The city of Hong Kong they recreated here is also just it's lively, it feels super interesting, and overall a great open world. And the thing about Sleeping Dogs is that it does look, play, and feel like a really big Rockstar game, like a Grand Theft Auto or something. It's an open-world crime game made by a totally different company though, and it has an identity all its own. In a lot of ways, it's actually more satisfying and complete than some of Rockstar's own games. So why is Sleeping Dogs so underrated though? Why haven't we gotten 10 sequels to it and a remaster every other year? Understandably, there is a loyal following, but the game just never really caught on the way it should have. Also, behind the scenes, production was a little bit messy. Sleeping Dogs was very close to being a true hidden gaming gem here, but that Square actually had the follow-up MMO Sleeping Dogs canceled along with a movie tie-in starring Donnie Yen in the works. We really feel like they were all in on this one and they just couldn't capture it, but still, the original remains, and for anybody who missed out on good old open world games, this is one to go back and check out. But those are at least some of the best, pretty underrated open world games that deserve your attention. There are a ton of others out there, so let us know what other ones you think are underrated. If you like this video though, clicking the like button helps us out. We would very much appreciate it. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos like this. But either way, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.